So when you're crafting your resume, you must understand that there is an international format for resumes, or what you might call CV, curriculum vitae, out there, and there is a format in the United States. Particularly, there is a format that the MBA programs are trying to see. And what they usually will be asking for is that you have just a one page resume. A one page resume is definitely helpful towards helping them look at your experience and everything straight from one page. Admissions officers are looking through lots and lots and lots of applications, right? So your many pages of resumes may not exactly be very pleasant to go through. So usually they would advise that, one page is enough. One page, if you structure the page properly, then it will be able to take the basic things, the important things that you need to communicate to the admissions team. As at the time when someone like me was going to be doing an MBA, I already had about a decade of experience. And, I initially struggled to see how to fit in all of my 10 years of experience into one page. But over time, I learned. I learned how to pick out the things that really, really mattered and just have them right in there and leave the things that don't matter out. There will always be opportunities to speak towards some of the things that will not be in your resume. Matter of fact, you will definitely speak to some things that you do not have in your resume. Maybe when you're networking or when you're interviewing, and the interviewer has like your resume right in front of them, you probably don't want to be talking about the things on your resume. You want to, branch out a little bit and, be able to give them something more. We're going to get into that some other time. Today is not a day we're talking about interviews, but we're talking about resume crafting. So ensure that your resume is clear. And one quick thing I'd like to say here is be sure to not fall into the culture trap. A good example is the average African is trained to be humble. So when communicating some of their achievements, they tend to be humble about it and not speak much. But then in Africa, that's a thing that we all know. If someone says to you in Africa, by the grace of God, I have one or two houses, fellow Africans know that this person is just probably being humble. This person most likely may have 30 houses or more. In the United States, it's different. Someone has 30 houses, they're going to be very clear with you about it. I have 30 houses comprising of 20 commercial buildings, bringing a revenue of about $27 million yearly. And I have 10 residential buildings, bringing me a revenue of $13 million yearly, a cumulative of $50 million yearly, as we look to expand by 150% in the next 3 years. They both have said the same thing, but the guy from the US is able to communicate um, um, his own properties and the value and everything better with figures. That's something that we do not exactly have a lot in Africa and maybe other parts of the world. So if you're applying, keep this in mind that you may need to communicate like that. You may need to communicate clearly. You may need to use a lot of numbers when you're communicating to ensure that you are showing clarity around what you're talking about. You are showing confidence, and you're ensuring that you are giving good context, because with numbers, whoever is reading can see that, like, context, right? Oh, I was able to generate $200,000 within my first 3 months at the firm, right? That makes sense that even while you're still ramping up, you are able to do that kind of work, right? So ensure that you're very, very clear and careful as you put your resume together. a good rule of thumb will be that as you go through this process, look for current students in the schools that you're applying to, look for alums, and let them handhold you through the process. And now we're going to get into essay writing. Let's talk about the essays. With essays, this is a very good way to land yourself that admission. There, there are four major areas that admissions officers look at when they're trying to offer you or not an admission. They look at your professional experience, they look at your undergrad transcripts and your grades, they look at your test scores, and then the essays. Now, you don't have to have them all. Even if you have a deficit in one of these categories, just ensure that you use the essay properly as a tool that you're supposed to use it for. That's where you would communicate who you are. That's where you will show your personality. That's where even many schools will give you space for optional essay to tell us anything that you might not have been able to communicate from the regular essays that they've asked you to put together. There you can address some of the things that you think are might be red flags in your application or whatnot, right? So essay writing is something that you should take very, very seriously because that actually helps the admissions officers see through who you are and be able to decide if they want to let you in or not. Remember that with essay writing, you want to ensure that your first paragraph is a killer. Your first paragraph needs to drive something. The admissions officers and the people who are reading these applications, in my opinion, they're reading a lot of applications, right? So you don't want your essay to sound very normal, at least the first paragraph. You want to make it very eventful. You want to make it maybe very interesting in such a way that the reader of your essay cannot stop, will continue to go on to see what you have coming on right in the middle of your essays. A good tip for you will be to take some classes in storytelling. You can find those on YouTube all over and try to tell your story in a way that someone that is not from your background or from your part of the world can easily find the context that they need to be able to understand what you're talking about. And then we move on to recommendation letters. There are many times that people make these mistakes, especially international students, thinking that the higher ranked the recommender is, the better the chances of getting in. No, no. When you're looking for someone to write you a recommendation, you're looking for someone that is accessible. You're looking for someone that is willing to sit down and write about you. You're looking for someone that is not too busy to write. You're looking for someone that you can ask to sit down with you and talk about your experience, your skills, your achievements, so that they understand what to write and how to write it. At times, those recommenders that are very, very highly placed, the CEOs and things like that, those are the people that may not exactly have so much time to spend on your application because most of these schools will shoot an they will shoot a recommendation link, and once your recommender opens the link, you'll be seeing things like, oh, in 500 words, in 1000 words. If your recommender is not someone that has time like that, then they may not be doing justice to your recommendation letters. I just wanted to make that clear. So find someone that is approachable, find someone that is willing to write about you, find someone that understands your strengths, someone that can communicate the value that you will bring into the MBA program. Next, we will be going into financial planning, as many of you think that, oh, because the MBA costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, Maybe you don't have a chance because you don't have that money. I'm going to prove you wrong. You actually may not even need any money to get started. Some people don't have to pay anything at all. Others are able to get into an MBA program on full scholarship and still be paid for attending that program. Maybe doing one or two things in the school as a TA or whatnot. But we're going to get into that. See you again.